Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Command Point for our first video in a while, Ryan. I'm Shane, and I'm joined here by Ryan Clancy. Ryan, how's it going?
Hi, good. We have been
Just
pretty busy recently, Shane.
yeah, we
So,
have. Fortunately, a lot of that business for me has been actually playing Kill Team,
hmm
so I can't complain too much. But no, the new additions here, we wanted to let it marinate a little bit, about a month before we released our own tier list. And I know that some other content creators have beaten us to the punch here. But I would have felt like I was, and I still don't feel like I have a full scope yet. I don't think anybody does.
I don't think
But
anyone does. Yeah.
yeah, it's nice to have absorbed. I've played in a couple tournaments now. I've played a variety of teams and against a variety of teams, and I think I have a pretty good impression on the meta. And I also think it's going to be nice for people to watch this because I think that we're going to have some different opinions from the field. Maybe I think it's going to, and I think I can have some pretty interesting conversations about that. So,
Okay.
Ryan, I mean, how's it going?
It's going good. I've actually been playing a lot more Kill Team recently than I think I did at the start of the previous edition of Kill Team. So
Hmm.
I too feel like I have uh, a much more holistic understanding of a lot of these teams. I've been playing a variety of teams instead of just kind of like hyper focusing on one.
Hmm.
Um, so far, I've gotten the chance to play Nemesis Claw. I've played Hand of the Archon. I've played the Aquilons. I've played the Vespid Stingwings. And those are just the ones I remember right now. So, but yeah, I've been
Yeah.
playing. I've got a game coming up on Tuesday against our friend Jonah. He's
Yep.
taking his Warp Coven for a spin. He's been telling me he's been getting those painted up. So I think I'm going to take Hand of the Archon into that game because I think Hand of the Archon is at least in the opening stages of this edition. I think that might be my main.
Yeah, they're really fun. I've gotten the chance to play against them a couple times now, and elves are cool right now. I
Elves are
think
very
is
cool, yeah.
is one of my main takeaways. But I mean, we'll get into it. So Ryan, do we want to just grab a random team and talk about them?
Random team, any random team,
Any team.
any team at all. All right. Let's talk about Farstalker kinband,
Oh, our favorite.
our favorite. Yeah.
So yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on them. I haven't played with them or against them yet, so disclaimer there. And that's going to be the case for a lot of these teams. But I have thought about them quite a bit, and I've taken a deep look into their rules. And I know some people that there was some talk at first that like, oh, they seem a lot better than before. And I think in a vacuum sense, like the team itself, the rules are a little bit better.
hmm
But I think it's not. It's also like you have to consider that I think most of the teams in a straight sense are just better than they were. I think there's not very many teams at all that are worse straight up.
100% agree.
So you have to consider that. Um, you have to consider too that one of their strengths last edition was they would like scum their attack ops and max everything by the end of turn two, and then they would just try to ignore you and go even on primary basically, and try to win games that way because they were very non-lethal.
Yeah.
And they were also pretty good against, in my opinion, I thought they were okay against other shooty hordes because they could actually kill them. And the tankier stuff, I think they struggled against. Um, so the current approved ops, the way that matched play is a third. You can no longer do that tac op scumming thing. That's gone. A third of the points are now killing, which is really bad for Kroot. And your opponent can lean harder into killing against you and pretty reliably get three primary on it. Um, and I think three crit ops is better for them because poach is actually a lot more useful. I think when there's only three objectives on the board. Um, but also with three objectives being the board, the fights are going to be more centralized to those areas. It's harder to just play keep away. Um, and I think Crude are really going to struggle there. And so I think in some ways they got better, but I think in a big picture way they kind of got worse, um, which is unbelievable. I just can't imagine playing Crew right now in their current state. I don't think they're the worst team in the game anymore, so I guess you can give them that. But I
Okay.
do think that they're like a
Interesting.
solid bottom tier, like easily to me.
All right. We'll throw them down in D tier. Starting
And
off strong
yeah,
with this tier list.
it makes me sad because I do love my bird boys,
I know.
and I'm thinking I'm gonna be doomed to never want to
I
play them
don't know
because
if
they always
they'll
stink.
ever be good, Shane.
They just stink again.
Because when are they supposed to be getting unclassified?
We got a couple years,
Oh,
I
okay.
think,
So
for them.
there's still time. There's still time.
It's been a couple years already.
I know. I know.
uh, they'll become good and be declassified,
Yeah.
or I guess classified. They're currently classified. They get
Right.
declassified when they're gone, right?
Yes. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll become good and then get declassified within a month. That'll be the Crute situation.
Yeah.
Um, 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do we got here? Am I picking a team?
Yeah, you can if you want.
Let's talk a little bit about. Um, let's go to Mandrakes, Ryan,
Mandrakes?
because we
Okay.
just mentioned elves, and how elves kind of rock right now.
They do.
So I think Mandrakes at the end of the edition were probably the best elf team. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
100%.
pretty easily they were the best elf team. And I actually like looking at them. So like obviously all the elves have 7-inch movement now, which is a big deal. And I think it's easy to like gloss over that when you're evaluating the new teams. So in a sense, 7-inch movement, that's just a buff for Mandrakes, straight up. Their movement's higher than it was before. Pretty great. However, I do think Mandrakes are like one of the only teams that I think is mostly worse than they were before.
Yeah.
And it's not in huge ways because I still think they're good, but it's in little ways. Like for instance, the Dirge Maw, the guy that focuses one of your operatives and then interrupts your activation. They added a little bit of text onto that operative's rule, the focus rule, where now if he's interrupting, if you can, you have to fight or shoot that operative that you're focusing on. Whereas before,
Ooh.
you didn't have to do that. That disclaimer wasn't there. It was
Yeah.
just you interrupt and activate first, which could mean a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So this opens up the door for a lot more counterplay to that, which I thought was one of their strongest abilities, just flat out. Um, in addition to that, I think that I mean I will say that the Night Fiend was probably the most egregious model on that team. The Night Fiend has become uh, not much different. He's kind of the same as he was, which I was a little bit disappointed in because I thought at his best he was a pretty toxic model to play against. So that's still a thing. I mean, within Shadow works the same way. Shadow Passage. They did buff the what is his name? The Shade Weaver. His Weave Darkness ability. It costs 1 AP now. Um, or I'm sorry, his the sorry, Weave Darkness was always 1 AP, but he used to have when he would make his portal, it would cost 2 AP to do it. Now it happens, I believe, when he does a reposition Shadow Passage action himself. So that costs a little bit less setup, but you have to imagine too that with Weave Darkness, I mean it's just smoke, right? And I think
Yeah.
smoke is, while still good, it's not as good as it was. Because first of all, you can get within 2 inches to turn it off,
Yeah.
and they've smoke also lets you ignore piercing, which mandrakes do anyway, so isn't a huge deal. But before you couldn't turn it off at all. Now you can get within 2 and shoot a guy that's in smoke. So that was another thing they leaned pretty heavily into. And everything else, other than the movement, to me, is mostly the same. So that sounds like I feel like they're a B tier team now. I don't think with everything still there, I could call them worse than B tier, but they're no longer, flirting with A or S tier like they used to be.
Mm-hmm. So, my turn to choose a team. I think let's go and talk about one of the teams out of the Hive Storm box. Let's talk about the Vespid Stinglings, Shane.
Ooh, yeah, you've gotten the chance to play them a bit, Ryan, haven't
Yep.
you?
Yeah. I've played them a few times at this point. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
So, what have your experience? I mean, I know you've. We played them against Nurgle Legionaries, which is just a nightmare. But
literally a nightmare matchup. Yeah.
I mean, what else? What other thoughts do you have on them? I mean, how would you kind of evaluate them now?
So I thought initially when I was looking at the rules, I was like, okay, their weapons get stronger. They get P1 when they move or just perform a reposition action. And so I'm like, okay, that's neat and interesting. You want to be repositioning in this game quite often. Um, but because you need to do that in order to unlock this P1 on your weapons, it really messes with your entire action economy.
Hmm.
Because it's like, okay, I'm just repositioning, not necessarily to go and perform a mission action. And like most of these guys are 2 APL anyways.
No comms either.
Yeah, no comms really, really sucks. They have some cool operatives like the Ghost Weave or whatever. The model is with like a 2-up save and like a 5-up. Uh, I think it's called a Ghost Weave. The one with like the helmet. That model is
Hmm.
sneakily durable for what it is if it's in cover.
Yeah.
Um, but like that's like the highlight for me. I feel like the team is. I think they're C tier. I mean, dude, honestly, I might even put them D tier.
I think it was the Shade strain, by the way. I just had to look it up.
Okay, yeah,
Shade strain. Yeah,
yeah.
that's it. To be honest, I think I was going to put them in C tier as well. That sounds about right.
Hmm.
I think that they're just sort of capped. Like the communion points don't feel like an ability. It feels like a handicap.
It absolutely is a handicap. Yeah,
And I kind of like I get the idea. It's a cool, fluffy thing, but I don't know. It's like for a team that has really poor action economy, like punishing them for doing mission actions and like not letting them like forcing them to activate in certain ways just to like get their weapons to work correctly feels weird. It just feels like a lot of their design space is kind of like restrictive more so than
yeah.
yeah,
You're
I
you're
don't know.
playing against the team itself when you're running it, which
Yeah.
is just not a good. It's just not a good play experience. And God forbid you are across the table from Nurgle Legionaries, in which case your P1 that you're getting on your guns is negated anyways by Nurgle
Yeah, not
Legionaries. So,
I think one thing we need to evaluate with teams is how like their ability to deal with elites. I think we're going to get into it more as we talk on the elite
hmm,
teams, but um, right now you have legionaries and warp coven who have innate abilities to reduce piercing by one, which for teams like Vespids that don't have piercing two, and a lot of their damage is built into having piercing one, which is
yeah.
situational as it is, they basically just bounce right off.
Even like the
So
railgun, I think that like the sniper operative has, if I remember correctly, I think it only has P1.
yeah.
Yeah, so
That being said, when you're playing against a team that can't reduce piercing and the team is like firing on all cylinders, I think they feel kind of powerful, like just the amount of piercing and the amount of devastating they put out.
hmm,
Um, they're a pretty cool team. 9 wounds means that they're like kind of deceptively tanky in their own way, especially with their aerial agility rule, strategic ploy that basically gives them like a just a scratch on a 5-up if they've moved
yeah.
whenever they take damage. So pretty good. Um, yeah, I mean C seems fair to me. They're not like horrible, but I do think that they are lacking a lot of the tools to be like a top team for sure. Let's go in now and talk about. Well, Ryan, we wanted to talk about elites. Let's kick us off with Nemesis Claw,
Okay.
one of the who I would say kind of like Mandrakes being the best elf team at the end of last edition. Nemesis Claw to me seemed like the best elite team at the end of second. So
Hmm.
you've played them a bit.
Yeah.
Where do you kind of stand on them now?
So, in my opinion, I think into the field, Nemesis Claw might be the worst of elite teams, and I don't know if that's a hot take or not. Um,
I
last
actually agree for what it's worth.
okay. So last edition, the team felt great into elites because of their whole because of Vox Scream. So you could just absolutely dominate another elite player across the
And the
table.
passing as well, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Now you can only pass with an operative once, which is it's 100% fair. It
Yeah.
felt really toxic, especially at Atlantic City Open. Um, when I did that in one of my games, and I had like 5 prescience tokens, so I just like skipped 5 activations in a row, and the poor Legionaries opponent had to go and just like you either come out in the mid board and I kill you on the clapback, or you just do nothing and score no points. So it's just a. Anyways, I'm
Rough.
happy that thing is not that's not a play that you can do anymore. Um, Unfortunately, that was one of the strongest things the team had going for it, and they didn't really get any buffs anywhere else. They obviously get the double fight, double shoot, or excuse me, they get the double shoot for free now.
And the double
'Cause-
fight. So I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
they can fight twice, shoot twice, like Marines. They do have the 14 wounds, which is nice.
hmm
Um, but
But all of the
comparatively,
other
yeah,
elite teams also got that.
yes,
So it's
and
like,
and also I think you can look at it kind of like they were sort of a tricksy, sneaky elite team last edition,
yeah,
but they weren't hitting they were hitting about as hard as the other elites. And for some reason now it just feels like compared to Legionnaires um and Warp Coven, for instance, like it just feels like Nemesis Claw doesn't hit really, really hard
yeah,
anymore.
it definitely feels pillow fisted for an elite team.
Mhm.
Um, Also, in Midnight Clad got objectively worse because it
um
only works with heavy cover now.
True, yeah, because you just had to be within an inch of cover before, didn't you?
Yeah,
Um
which
yeah,
I
and
mean,
I
like
mean
on Volcus, it's usually fine. On Galadark, it's usually fine because there's heavy cover all over the place. But you know,
actually, on Into the Dark, I would say it's pretty bad because I mean I don't know. It depends on how you look at it because now the objectives are in like these big open rooms, so it's actually pretty hard to
yeah,
be near heavy cover.
yeah,
But then you're in cover, light cover anyway. So if they have Seek, I guess they're beating you. But Seek light, yeah, I don't know. They just they feel underwhelming. And in the games I've played against them, they feel very bare.
hmm
Which I
Well,
mean
their
they
equipment got worse too. It's all coming back to me, Shane. It's all coming back.
they're yeah, the Grizzly trophy is worse strictly.
The flayed
Um,
skin is also worse.
yes, I mean you get it on everybody now, but it is worse. And it doesn't compare to like the some of the defensive tools that other elites have.
Yeah,
I mean they really are just kind of living and dying by 3-up saves, and 14 wounds, which is it's a lot, but it's teams can chew through that.
yeah.
I think. Um, I would put them so this is like where it starts to get hot takey because I think they're like a low A, high B team, and I like they're nowhere near S for me.
No. Yeah,
What do you think?
we'll put them because there's no one there right now. We'll park them in A.
Yeah, I feel like we've just
But
said bad things about them. They are still good.
yeah, because they're this is weird to say. They're good because they're an elite team. That's crazy to say for me
Yeah,
still. Um,
like there are some teams that I think they're just going to they can stat check a little bit, not to the full extent of like Legionaries, but
mhm.
they can stat check enough and then be tricksy enough to work around you. Vox Scream is still great.
Yeah,
Um, the team has some great models. I do like the Fearmonger a lot more now. I think
yeah.
believe his poison got better. It's like 2d3 damage when you step on it now instead of d3.
Yeah, so if you're playing like a 7 wound team, you really got to think if you want to step on that objective.
Yeah, or like other elites. I mean, 2d3 is not nothing.
Yeah.
Um, all right, let's move on. Ryan, I think it's you.
No, you actually chose Nemesis Claw. I just talked about a lot about it.
Yeah, I chose him, but now you got to choose
Oh
a team.
shoot, yeah. All right, let's go and talk about hmm. Let's talk about Fellgor Ravagers, Shane.
Yeah, I was playing that team a lot at the end
hmm
of second edition. So I think it's Felgors are in a weird place because I think that they are. So they did get worse. I think, for the most part. I mean, there are a few things like So near the end of last edition, they took some nerfs where their relentless weapons became ceaseless, which it went from re-rolling everything on those weapons to re-rolling ones. And now ceaseless, they still have it, but ceaseless is better. So they kind of like got moved. That got moved into the middle of where it was. Um, I think them losing the turn one crack play is really significant because that was a very
Yeah.
strong play for them. The Toxhorn got worse, straight up. But everything else is pretty similar. The Shaman is a little bit different. He's got like a funny, like Seek weapon for some reason on his. Have you looked at that, Ryan?
I
The
have not.
Shaman. So you know how you used to have the curse weapon ability, where he'd give your weapon hot.
Right, yeah.
So he no longer has that, and they replaced.
Okay,
Well, he
good.
has it still. He has curse weapon, but it's
Oh,
no longer what it was. Now it's a shooting attack. It's it's infinite range. It's a psychic attack. It's Seek, not Seek Light. It's just Seek, so you can just hit you, and it's 4 shots on threes, 1/3, rending, saturate, Seek. So it's just like he just looks at somebody on turn one, and then like does damage to them.
okay. That's
um,
a weird name for an ability.
yeah, Tech Curse is the name of the ability.
Okay.
Um, so I guess he just hurts you. I don't know, but it's kind of cool that they have like a long range shooting attack now. Granted, I don't know how much you want to be going on engage with,
Yeah.
your Fellgor shaman on turn one, but I think a lot of people are just going to like put him peeking out and then like flip him on engage and shoot you and then like hide behind a wall just to like do damage for free. Um, Tempting, really funny, but otherwise, I mean, the team is mostly the same. They're most of their specialists are like word for word the same. What's it called? Frenzy is the same pretty much, as far as I'm aware. I don't think I'm missing anything. Their ploys are mostly the same. I mean, the pelting firepower is like slightly more usable. I still don't think it's good. Um, Maybe it's okay. Maybe you can still take cracks, but I don't know. Warpaint is worse. Um, so everybody gets it, but it doesn't affect APL modifiers anymore, which means like the other melee hordes, stunning them is an effective strategy.
Mm.
Um, so like in a lot of ways, for the most part, they just got worse. And yet, despite that, I still think they're really good. I mean, I thought they were S tier at the end of last edition. I don't think that anymore. I think notably, I think they fail the elite check
Yeah.
really hard. Like
Okay.
I don't know what you do with this team. Like I thought I was playing against Nemesis Claw a lot at the end of last edition just because they were a very common team
Yeah.
with Fellgors, and that was a really hard matchup. I mean, like I played it quite a few times, and I would usually win it, but it would be very close. And the way I see it now, Nemesis Claw is a lot better than they were, which is weird to say after we just kind of dumped on them. And Fellgors are a lot worse. Well, not a lot worse, but a little worse. They're mostly the same, but the teams that I was barely beating got better. And to be honest, Nemesis Claw, it looks like one of the more beatable elite teams for Felgors, and it still looks really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Something like Legionnaires, I can't even imagine. It just sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah. Legionary. I feel like we'll be hitting a common theme of Legionaries is a nightmare matchup. Um.
Yeah,
So are we
but like the
feeling
other,
like? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, the weird thing is, we're gonna talk more about some of these elf teams because I mean, there's the elite teams, but there's also the elf teams that got a lot better.
Love the elf team.
And I think that the elf teams are really good,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Felgors pretty much dump on them. But the problem is Felgors are getting taken out of the meta a little bit by elites. So I think if we see elites get nerfed, like some people predict is going to happen, I think Felgors could jump up and be like an S tier team again, by all accounts. And I think it's elites are keeping them in check right now. So I would say they're like a low A tier team in my eyes. I think they're going to end up looking a lot better than most of the B tiers. And now I got to pick a team, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess I'd put them below Nemesis Claw on A tier.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Ryan, your favorite team. We've been talking about elves a little bit. I
Yeah.
don't know about your favorite team, but the team you want to main, Hand of the Archon.
Yeah.
I mean, we were kind of haters of Hand of the Archon last edition. We like I think our last couple tier lists we just like dumped on them.
I wanted them to be good so bad, Shane, because I thought
Well,
they were so cool.
I think you
Um,
got your wish, Ryan.
I did get my wish. Um, Too long didn't read. Hand of the Archon, they're just making all these power from pain tokens like it's nothing. They're just printing
Yeah.
them.
They are a team that I mean, other than the 6 of Feel No Pain, it feels like they didn't really lose anything. They only gained stuff.
Yes, yeah,
And what they got as a result, like instead of the 6 of Feel No Pain, is just way better. So you don't even care. And it's also better to play against too. Nobody likes playing against Feel No Pains. So
no,
um Hand of the Archon, I think, is debatable. There's a debate to be had about what the best elf team is now. I think Hand of the Archon is very much in the throes of that debate.
hmm
In my eyes, they're in the mix. I mean, their big issues last edition, right, were action economy, and that's like fixed, right? Pretty
pretty
much.
much, yeah. I mean, at the with the with your Elixicant or whatever, your drug dealer, um, at the start of the game, you're just gonna choose the give one operative a power from pain token for free every single time, and with that, you can effectively have 3 APL operatives on the table on your normally 2 APL team. You have your Cyberite and then whoever you want. So that can be your Gunner, that can be your Crimson Duelist, your Flare, those high threat models that you want to be, really juicing up with their APL. And those operatives, they can absolutely pop off for you, um, especially the melee operatives with the poison equipment.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, they're getting power from pain tokens whenever they wound somebody. They're getting them whenever they kill somebody.
Yeah.
And this is a team that has the firepower to kill elites, and they have the because the Darklands got buffed, huge.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, they have the stuff, in my opinion, that works against elites, which is piercing 2. I think in order to deal with elites, you either need piercing 2 or you need access to like a lot of crits.
yeah,
And this team has both.
yeah,
So Critty City is still ongoing.
Pretty
Big
City,
Critty City went nowhere.
yeah,
And they can take 2 piercing 2s, which is a big deal. Which means, when Warp Coven and Legionaries walk up and reduce your piercing, you're at least still taking a dice away from them.
hmm
Um, and then, even your regular splinter guns, they might just pop off and get 3 or 4 crits, and you don't care about piercing
yeah,
reduction anymore.
yep,
um, so yeah, I mean, they're just better in every way. I mean, they're like a borderline top 5 team in my eyes, but I think for now, I would be more comfortable putting them top of A and revisiting
yeah,
later, maybe.
yeah. I think that's the right way to go with that.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, top
and then it's
5 for
yeah,
Hand of the Archon like sounds kind of crazy, but I don't
yeah,
know. It feels like whenever I'm playing this team, I'm just getting free stuff all the time. I'm
yeah,
getting
for
the free
sure.
power from pain tokens. I'm getting free crits.
Hmm.
I mean, like even with that, like I'm not batting an eye when I go and charge one of my melee specialists into an elite operative because I'm gonna take
Yeah,
a chunk out of them at least.
that's the thing is like some of these teams, if you're fine with charging an elite and doing like 11 damage and dying, like that's okay
Yeah,
for
that's a
most things.
that's a good trade.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, but yeah, no, they're very good. Next up, Ryan, what do we got?
let's talk about a not so good elf team. Talk about the Blades of Khaine.
Oh, the Blades of Lame, as I've
Yeah,
been hearing people call them.
wow. I love
That's
it.
I can't take credit for that one, but yeah, they're not so good. I think they're like kind of getting repped as the worst team right now, um, by a lot of people. And hey, I kind of get it. They don't really stick out to me. Um, I think a lot of their stuff is pretty samey, and like a lot of the ways that you could have buffed them before, um, that were like the obvious things, they just didn't do it. Like, Shuriken, like Dire Avenger Shuriken catapults still don't have balanced. Like Striking Scorpions still don't save on 3s. And those were like the big ones. I don't know, and everything else is kind of similar. So, they've got the runes still. I think their faction equipment is kind of interesting. Um, Wraithbone talismans are good. They do hit on threes pretty much across the board, which is cool. Um, but it's all sort of just like the same. I think that they are okay against non-elite teams. Like, I don't think they're particularly great, but I think they're okay against non-elites. The problem is they just lose to elites pretty hard. I'd say they
Hmm.
also lose to Fellgor pretty hard. Um, I think honestly, maybe this is a hot take or whatever, but I'd say they're better than Kroot
Okay, I don't think that's a hot
personally.
take.
I don't know. People are calling Blades of Khaine the worst team, and
I
I
feel
I
like they're
get it.
only saying that because they forgot about Kroot.
Well, everybody just wants Kroot. I think there's like this thing where like if you just believe in your heart enough, then like maybe Kroot will be good. But trust me,
That's
guys, I've been there.
that's
It's
crazy.
it's
Where there is
um
delusion, there is hope.
yeah, yeah. Um but yeah, no, I mean a lot of their ploys for like rerolls are still like strangely situational.
Uh-huh.
Like fighting a ready enemy operative, you get ceaseless, or fighting or shooting an expended enemy operative, you get ceaseless. Like
Hmm.
I wish that you could just get it a little more reliably.
Yeah.
Like this is like a pseudo elite team. There's only 8 of them. They're all 3 APL. I think that they should have a little bit more oomph.
Hmm.
And you have to be careful with it because the team does have a lot of cool like tricks with their aspect techniques, so you don't want to like bump their stats too much. But I do think you could do a little bit more with them, personally.
Is this a team where it's like you think the complexity with like keeping track of all of those different situational like plays, all of those like aspect techniques and stuff like that. Do you think that this is a team where it's simply like the juice is not worth the squeeze?
A little bit.
Like you can main this team and like figure out all those situations and interactions and track that really well and play the team to its like fullest capability, but it's just capped by what it is.
A little. Yeah, I think that's not too crazy to say because they are definitely really hard to play still. And I don't think they're like there's nothing like crazy to unlock once you get good at them. It's just
Right,
for the
yeah.
sake of getting good.
Mhm.
Um, I do think that the Howling Banshees are pretty cool. Like I think you can mostly leave them the same, but I think maybe a little love for the Scorpions and Dire Avengers would have been cool to see. And like, stop giving teams with rending accurate. Can we talk about that? Like so many of
Yeah,
these
that's
these
crazy
teams
actually.
have accurate and it's like worthless. It's actually bad to use accurate for some of these because you want more chances to crit.
Yeah.
That's like where all your upside is baked into with like a shuriken catapult with rounding is
Mhm.
you have 4 chances to crit. You can take accurate 1, which retains a normal, but then you have 3 other dice that are, that's one less opportunity to get that 6. Yeah, I just hate seeing accurate all over the place. Um, let's move on. You just picked Blades of Khaine. I will say, let's talk about. Have we tapped into S tier yet?
Not at all, Shane. Not at
We have
all.
not, and that's just weird because I think there's quite a few. I want to talk about an S tier team. Let's
Mhm.
go into Inquisitorial Agents, maybe.
Ooh. Okay.
Um, I mean, they were a very good team last edition,
Yep.
and they kind of just got better across the board. Um, so the um the breachers were 6 operatives, but now they made that 5. So that was a nerf. But then they just went and made everything else better. So they can take Kasrkin still, which if you've been paying attention, Kasrkin now hit on threes. So Inquisitorial agents can take like 2 plasmas, 2 meltas, um, several of which are hitting on threes. They can have when they take Kasrkin, they also get access to the reposition Kasrkin strategic ploy from the recon guy and they get it for free for some reason. Like they don't have to pay for it. Um, their quarry ability used to just give balanced. Now it gives ceaseless, and you have an equipment to switch your quarry mid-turn once per game. They made some of their melee operatives, like the quest keeper that used to hit on 4s. Now she just hits on 3s. Denounce used to be once per game. Now it's multiple times per game, but it costs more, so that's just better.
Yep.
Absolute authority has been changed 0%. It's the same. It's still toxic. You can now have the same. So before, the leader and the skull, one of them would have the +1 attack aura, and the other one would have the -1 attack aura for enemies. Now you can give them both the same aura, and when the skull dies, you can bring him back to life at the cost of your leader loses that aura. But it was an aura that he wasn't really using anyway. So, and you can switch your aura whenever you activate them, just for free. So, I mean, like, what were we thinking? What were they thinking here? Like, how did this happen?
Here's a list of possible buffs that we can give this team going into the new edition. I hit select all.
Yeah.
I feel like
oh my
that's what
God.
happened here.
And also, they didn't need to get buffed at all. They were really good. They needed to
Yeah.
probably just be nerfed.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we didn't see a lot of them in like the U.S. meta, but internationally, like especially in Spain, they were very, very good.
mhm. And I think we will start to see them in the US meta. I think we're going to see them at Worlds quite a bit. They are not easy to play. That remains to be true. But man, I mean, what the heck? I don't understand what happened with this team. It's just like every single way they could have gotten better almost. It just happened. Yeah, they're very good. I do hope that they kind of have like everything. So they with absolute authority, they can turn off the piercing reduction and then throw multiple piercing 2 weapons at you and multiple piercing 1 weapons at you. They can they have out of activation dashes. They can ignore obscurity. They have a lot of melee. They can lean into melee. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're very good. They have 11 activations, and I think 12 if you take Deathcore, which you won't, but you can. Yeah, so I mean, the only thing now is that you take Kasrkin instead of what's it called? Instead of
The breachers.
Breachers, yeah. And if you want, I think you can still go Exaction for like more of a melee focus.
Yeah, with the shields and stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, this is like a top 3 team in the game for me.
Okay.
They definitely have everything you need to be elites, and they're very scary. So yeah.
Did you wind up painting them?
Mm-mm.
You haven't painted them yet?
No, I have them built, but I never painted them.
Okay. I still have the Kasrkin unpainted as well, so maybe we'll have to.
Yeah, little project maybe.
Yeah.
All right, my turn. Or no, this was
No,
me.
yeah.
It's on to you.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at Brood Brothers.
Ooh, yeah. So they were
Yeah,
I mean, hey,
they were the
probably the
boogeyman
best.
at the end
Yeah,
of the last edition.
they were the best shooty horde. It's kind of interesting to see where all these like former best teams land. So I think that Brood Brothers did get worse, straight up, which is good. They needed to get worse.
Yeah.
Um, some teams that needed to get worse didn't, like Inquisition, but Brood Brothers did get a little worse, but it wasn't through like direct nerfs so much as it was like they were like tangentially nerfed by like other things. Like I think that they really liked indirect grenades. I think they really abused that better than a lot of teams.
Yeah.
That was like one of their big plays on turn 1 last edition, and that's gone now. I think that they elites being better makes it a little bit harder for them. They were good against elites, and they're probably like one of the better teams against elites now still, but I'm not convinced that it's like a pure winning matchup for them. Maybe into stuff like Nemesis Claw, maybe. but even then, it's Nemesis calls a good team. So I don't know. Ryan, have you looked at them much?
I have not really.
Yeah, I'll
I
be honest. I
I picked
haven't
them
played
up at the
against
end of
them.
last edition, and
Yeah.
I did not do well with them. And so at the start of this edition, there were just other teams that I wanted to play.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that they didn't change a ton. Um, so for me personally, they were just I never found them super interesting. Um, but a lot of people liked them last edition. I think that Crossfire is the same. A lot of their ploys remain the same. Like they're really good firefight ploys, like Ruthless Coordination, are still very good. Insidious, the dash action between activations is still there.
Mm.
So like a lot of their tricks are still around. They did lose the turn one grenade throw that was far too good. Um, the Icon Ward I think is still very good. Um, Definitely a scary team. I think that a lot of the new changes to the game don't really favor them. Still very scary though. I mean, I would be tempted to put them in like a low A tier
Low
right
A.
now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What do you think is like the best operative or the best leader operative for them to take now? Out of curiosity.
Oh man, I think it's still like my take on it before was, there's going to be a different one that's best for each matchup, and I think that remains the same.
Okay.
The Magus is still very good against like 8 wound teams, which hey, the elves are going to be pretty common nowadays,
Hmm.
so that's pretty great. Um, Patriarch, it remains to be seen whether that's the take into the new elites. He could definitely just charge and kill a Marine,
Yeah.
which not a lot of things in the game can just do that. So I mean, you'll see him charge and kill a Marine and just survive. But yeah, I don't know. It's I think they're very like much a toolbox team still.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead now. Well, I chose that one, didn't I? Yeah. So you go ahead. You pick
Yeah,
one.
yeah. So it's over to me. Ryan, let's talk about Starstriders.
Okay.
I've played against Starstriders a couple times now. One of our locals really likes them, and I like what they've done with Starstriders a lot actually. They've kind of a lot of the things that bothered me about the team they toned down, like I always really hated how the support assets you could like it was like an 11th activation kind of, and you could
Yeah.
do it from a concealed guy that had already gone. I hated that.
That was the worst.
Um,
I hated it. It was
but
literally
yeah,
cheating.
so now it's like a shoot action um, that you do during an activation for one of your Navis operatives or from Vayne. And what's cool about that is it's not like an 11th activation. You have to like use somebody's activation for it. But they didn't just like straight up nerf it. I think they took it and made it interesting in a different way. First of all, there's like 3 more um, like artillery weapons available to you. So before I think there was only 3. There was just like the piercing 2-1 and then the 2 blast ones. Now there's another one that's piercing 1 with an extra dice, and there's another one that is like piercing crits with torrent, and then there's the 2 blast ones. So like you've got a lot more options here, and there's an equipment. So normally each of those you can only do once per game, but there's an equipment to do one of them twice a game. So like against elites, like this team has 2 piercing 2s and 2 piercing 1s, which is pretty good. And the toolbox is still pretty good. They've got the half damage ploy that got a little bit better. Um, the heal, I think the random heal is still there for survivalists. The 3 APL, the GA2 on command. They've still got a very good way to like tech into different matchups and like answer and like solve different problems on the board. Um, they're a very interesting team. The Warrants of Trade are still pretty much the same, still great. They can have like 6 pieces of equipment technically if you take the warrant for it and then
Hmm.
take the equipment scouting option, which is kind of crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah, they could just load the board up with like terrain. But yeah, I like Starstriders. I think that they are okay into elites. Um, I don't know. It's tough for me. I think they're like a high B in my eyes. They're not quite like they're not very toxic, so it's hard for me
Hmm.
to like say they're like an A tier team.
Yeah.
But I do think that they're like a high B, and if like you master the team, I think they're pretty good. They have access to recon and security, which are great. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like them.
You said high B. Are we thinking better or worse than Mandrakes?
I think they're better than Mandrakes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll go ahead and pick a team now. Let's go ahead and talk about the Space Marines. Let's talk about the Angels of Death.
Angels of Death. Yeah,
Yeah.
like the poster boy.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, Ryan, have you played Angels of Death yet?
Yeah, I've played them. I think I played them once
Okay.
into, I think it was Kasrkin.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was against the Aquilons.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, we pretty much have Intercession and Justian had a baby
Yep.
and spit out Angels of Death. Um, and honestly, I mean, how do you feel about him? Because I haven't played against them yet. I've looked at the rules quite a bit,
I
but
mean
kind of
the
curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, so this team is infinitely better than what Justine was or what the Intercession team was last edition, and that's simply because you can take all of the operatives from that from both of those teams into this. Um, the chapter tactics I think are cute, but they're not really like team defining. Obviously, just like the Astartes rule is really really good for this team. Um, they also have some great equipment. I think it's the reliquary thing. Let me pull this up. Let me pull this up actually.
Oh, the chapter reliquaries for the
Yeah, because this
Wrath of
is
Vengeance.
yeah, because it's like actually crazy. Being able to do the Wrath of Vengeance ploy for free because of that equipment is
Hmm.
absolutely insane. The action economy on this team is very very good already, but
How
like
about
that
the
particular
tilting
equipment, you just take
shields?
it every time. Yeah, so
I think the tilting shields as well are a lot better than they used to be. Just because it's like reactive and everybody gets them. So like with all the severe or rending or lethal 5 or whatever floating around, of which there's a lot. Being able to turn that off, I think, is a really powerful ability, even if it's just
yeah,
once per turn.
yeah. For example, I mean like into the hand of the archon, like those melee operatives, when you give them the poison,
Yeah.
that really limits those operatives. Um, I think in my game that I played with them, I wound up taking the Auspex. Um, did not really find it that useful, but um, yeah, I mean, like, what more do you want? It's a bunch of 14 wound plus bodies, or plus or minus, I should say, in the instance of the Eliminator Sniper, who is by far and away the better choice over the heavy Intercessor Gunner. Um,
Okay.
yeah, the operative is crazy. Um,
I do think he's like one of the few like pretty toxic things about this team, that sniper.
yeah,
For
because
instance, if you put him up on that top Volcus vantage, the very very high
like
one,
the third floor, yeah.
you kind of can't do anything to
No,
him.
you
You just
can't.
have
You
to
just have
like
to live with him being up there the entire game.
yeah, because he
Um,
ignores obscurity. He's got seek light. He's perma silent.
yeah, it's the perma silence for me that's just so stupid. Um,
Yeah.
I think that operative may warrant being looked at. Yeah, I mean that's a. I feel like, oh yeah, you put him on the third floor of this Vulcus terrain. It's like, I don't know. I don't know how often that situation actually comes up in game, because it's like once you get him up there, you're kind of locked into having him up there. But depending on where the objectives are, it's probably totally worth it.
Yeah, yeah, it could be. I mean, it also, yeah, like you said, who knows? Maybe your opponent just never gives you a shot, but it seems unlikely.
Hmm.
I mean, with ignore obscuring and everything, he'll probably shoot you eventually.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's everything else though does seem pretty straightforward. They can't like, um, they can't really like ignore piercing like some of the other teams. I do think it's a shame that the chapter tactics you get locked into them if you take this team to a tournament. Um, like that is kind of a bummer to me. Like it feels like if a lot of the other teams they can like Warp Coven for instance, they can change their boons every game on their sorcerers. But Angels of Death have to pick two chapter tactics and stick with them, which is a shame because a lot of these are like really
Yeah.
situational. Like
Eh,
some might be better into
Like
other
you
teams.
you can spend a CP to swap out your secondary one
Yeah.
for a different one, but it's like I think probably the two best ones are going to be Resolute and not Hardy. I mean maybe Dueler
Yeah, Resolute does strike me as like a necessity just because
because
there's
it's
going to be a lot of
yeah.
stuns.
And like you're gonna run into
Um,
teams that don't have any way of messing with your APL, in which case it's gonna feel like a waste. So pro
yeah.
tip probably would be to make that your secondary chapter tactic choice.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I guess technically, yeah, like you'll know because any team can take stuns, but you know, if they don't take stuns, then and they don't have stun, then yeah, you're right. They won't
Yeah.
ever, it won't matter.
Um.
Um, and then like yeah, like Dueler is going to be great sometimes, but it won't always be needed. Like if you're playing against like Kroot, you probably don't need Dueler. You're not that afraid of their melee. Um,
Siege specialist is horrible. That's the one where your ranged weapons have saturate.
oh yeah,
That one's just
not
so
great.
bad.
Yeah.
Um.
Anyway,
But
should we
yeah.
put them? I want to say like they're kind of so I mean I think them and Nemesis Claw are probably in my eyes the two worst elite teams.
Yeah, I think so too.
They're both still great though.
Hmm.
So I'm tempted to put Angel's Death like low A, high B. Like where do we have Nemesis Claw right now? We have them in A.
Nemesis, we have them. Yeah, we have them in A, above
I think
Fellgor and
yeah, I think we can put Nemesis Claw or I'm sorry, Angels right above Nemesis Claw, I guess. I do think they're a little more flexible than Nemesis Claw, but they're a little
in
less
into
like
the field.
risky.
I think they play better. If we're talking about Angels of Death versus Nemesis Claw, I think I would give edge to Nemesis Claw
Okay.
just because of stuff like Vox Scream. Um,
Either way, they're close.
yeah,
They're in a similar boat.
they're neck and neck.
Yeah. All right. So next up, is it my turn?
Yes.
I think it is. Yeah. What else do we got here? Let's take a look. Let's do Kasrkin.
Okay. Big glow up.
Kasrkin, yeah, a little glow up. They hit on threes now. No more elite points. Um, a lot of their like so now their faction ability is like they get like severe sometimes or like they can move a little faster. It's kind of like guardsman orders, but a little more flexible and less like setup required.
Hmm.
Um, I think they're still a very much honest team. Um, they don't do anything crazy, which is probably good. I mean, they're going to be a popular team just forever because they're Kasrkin.
Yeah.
But I don't. I mean, their melee is still very mediocre. Teams can punish them through melee. Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what there is to say about Kasrkin. They are. I think the change to make them hit on threes and get rid of elite points was a good change for balance, and it puts them in the right kind of. It's a move in the right direction. Um, and the skill at arms makes them able to sort of flex a little bit. Um, but between different play styles on the fly, which is cool. They can still seize the initiative. I feel like they're very honest still. And not enough in my eyes changed for this team to like make me like them a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the worst offense, and this is just a me thing, is if you're not into like the lore of Kasrkin, these team rules are sort of boring to me.
Yeah.
Like the rules on the page do not excite me, which I guess doesn't matter for a tier list. But um, yeah, I don't know. I think they're just like maybe this is rude. I guess we had them at like bottom tier before. I think they're C tier now.
Okay.
Personally, have you played against them yet?
I have not, but I mean, like, so the real answer to if you want to run Kasrkin or not is just spend the extra $55 or whatever it is to get the Agents of the Imperium Inquisitorial Agents box, and then you can
Yeah.
actually play a real team.
Yeah. Yeah, if you really, really want to play Kasrkin models, yeah, go
Just
play
play them in
Inquisition.
Inquisition. Yeah.
It is possible for Kasrkin to be top tier through the power of Inquisition.
Yeah. Yeah. Lore
Um,
accurate also.
yeah, yeah. So C tier to me, like probably low C tier. Like I'd
Below
put them
Vespid.
below. Oh, I think they're probably better than Vespids.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, over to you.
Who do we got left here?
Quite a few.
Um, Shane, let's talk about Commandos.
Oh, okay. Commandos. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're quite different. I've had the opportunity to play against them once now, and I've listened to
Same.
quite a few other people talk about them. And at first I thought they were going to be bad, but looking at them more now, I still think they're fine. Like they have like no piercing at all. I think their lethality took a big hit.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, they have no more piercing. Their melee is um, probably overall not as good because I mean the chop and nerf happened last edition, I guess, but it's mostly the same. It's not better, I guess you can say. Um, and the one thing that's different is so their shooting. I don't want to say their shooting's worse. They did lose piercing across the board, but their shooting is it's just different. Instead of having piercing, they have like all the guns that lost piercing like gained an extra attack. So like you have weapons like the rocket or the squig, I think, that have like 6 shots. Um, and they still have Daka to get punishing.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean they're throwing like buckets of dice out, and the upside cases of these weapons is like sometimes better than having piercing because you can theoretically put more damage through. Um, so I would say their shooting almost kind of got better when I think about it because against elites, an extra shot sort of makes up for no piercing, and against everything else where the piercing wasn't as important, the extra shot's like a huge deal. Especially on like a rocket, it does 4 damage on a normal. So the real thing about Commandos now is they are like stun city. Like they can pull up with their boys can throw a stun grenade every turn. One of their boys each turn can throw a stun
Yeah.
grenade.
Yeah, that's
Their
pretty crazy.
harpoons, the harpoon stun, um, the comms guy, the comms boy, he stuns. You can take stun grenade equipment to let somebody else throw stuns. Um, and there's a lot less ignoring APL modifiers this edition. So I mean, I don't know if that's like the right play style, but man, that much stun is like kind of terrifying. And at the end of the day, there's still like a wall of meat. Like they still have just a scratch
Yeah.
and 11 bodies, and they're hard to kill easily. They do definitely run into a wall against elites, but who knows? Maybe that stun playstyle is the way to go. Maybe that's the answer.
Ignore APL chapter tactic. All right.
Yeah, except
Yeah.
for Angels of Death, in
Yeah.
which case they just bounce off and die.
Yeah.
But I think they're B tier.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I think they're B tier. Just because of like their poor matchup. Well,
yeah. I mean, I would put
not
them
poor
above
matchup.
Mandrakes
Yeah.
and probably, oh man, I don't know. Starstriders, I think, are better.
Starstriders are just like I think they're still a tricksy enough team.
Yeah.
maybe tricksy's not the right word. I don't know. Just like varied in the stuff you can do with them. Whereas Commandos feel like, okay, this is our play pattern. Everyone knows the play pattern. With Starstriders, I feel like they don't have that problem.
Yeah. All right. So next up, I think it's is it you?
I chose Commandos actually.
You chose Commandos. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about let's go to Exaction Squad, man. I
Exaction.
think Exaction Squad got a little bit of a glow up, to
Okay.
be honest. Um, like I gotta pull up their rules really quick, but I haven't played against them, but I've heard some stories about Exaction Squad, and they sound better to me. Like just like looking at their rules. So first of all, they've got the Marked for Justice strategic gambit that is now just like a basic rule. I think it used to be, or I think it like wasn't a thing before. So basically, you pick a guy once per turn to be your mark, and you get punishing against that guy like the whole turn. And then if you kill them, you can move the mark. And this is a thing that you get for free. So it's just like it's like a free like way to put more damage out. Ruthless efficiency is still there. So you're shooting into engagement, or I'm sorry, into control range, enemies that are in control range. Um, a lot of the ploys are pretty much the same, except some of them just got better, like Balanced getting replaced by Ceaseless with Dispense Justice. Um, and just certain things just being a little bit better across the board. A lot of their firefight ploys are pretty much the same, and they had some pretty cool firefight ploys. I guess Long Arm of the Emperor's Law I think is different. You increase the range of one of your weapons, other than like a frag or crack, by 3 inches.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
cool. You get a shotgun with 6 inch or with 9 inch range, which I think is sweet. Um, the like Proctor Exactant is still a beast, moving his little Nuncio Aquila token around. Um, the Castigator is I mean I think he's a little better. I think he's 5/5 damage now. I believe he was 4/4 before. Um, the Gunner is better. So I mean the grenade launcher is still pretty much the same, but they made the Heavy Stubber a little bit better, and they made the Weber like way better. The Weber is like 4 shots on threes, 4/5 severe stun now, or something, which is kind of awesome. And by the way, severe and punishing is just a sweet combo. Pretty much guarantees like 2 hits as long as you get 1 hit. Um, the Leashmaster, Cyber Mastiff is pretty much the same. I mean, the team is very samey to what it was before, but it just feels like in small little ways they got little bumps. Um, I don't think they're like a heavy hitter quite yet, but I could be tempted to put them into B tier, like a low B tier now.
Interesting. Okay.
I just think there's like a lot going on with them,
Yeah.
and
They
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 can
do
get
have a lot
like
going on.
yeah, like they have access to like the equipment to give them piercing 1 against like 3-up saves, which is pretty sweet. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just think they're neat, you know.
Yeah. All right, so we're saying B tier for these guys.
Yeah, I would say
Above
B
or
tier,
below
probably
Mandrakes?
below.
Okay. But yeah, you just get a box of these guys, build like 4 shields, 5 shields, 6 shields, however many
I think
shields,
I think
and
five
then
is the
five
amount.
shields, and then a box of the Inquisitorial agents.
You could do that too.
hmm Yeah, and then you're playing a real team.
Hey, they're a real team.
They
Come
are a
on,
real team, but
they're a
you
real
know what
team.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right, my turn to pick. Shane, let's talk about a team, a team that you've been playing a lot recently, and that's going to
Ooh.
be the Novitiates.
Oh yeah. I have been playing a lot of Novitiates. So I mean, full disclosure, I played this team at New York Open. Went 5-1. Finished fourth or
I
fifth or
thought third.
third or fourth or something. I don't know. They like switched it, and I don't really care. I went 5-1. Really is the thing that matters. Um, and I believe all of my games were pretty much winnable, which is the important thing. And I came into the tournament very high on Novitiates. Like all my games up to the tournament have been like very one-sided in the Novi's favor. And I think there are certain this is a team that in my eyes is like the one of the most obvious S tiers. I think they're top 3, maybe top 4. If they're not top 3, they're top 4. But they are like there are certain things about this team that is just like really hard for other teams to deal with. For starters, what sticks out to me the most is the combination of Defenders of the Faith, which is half damage on one attack dice that your opponent hits you with, whether it's shooting or fighting or retaliating. If you're on an objective marker or mission marker. Now this in itself doesn't read as being like crazy egregious, but I do think this should probably be once per turn per operative instead of every time. So like you can get double shot in the same activation and get the damage reduction on both of those shots, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Now they are only 7 wounds across the board, so hey, I kind of get what they're going with. But when you pair it with the other strategic play, Blessed Rejuvenation, that says every time you spend faith points after that action is over, heal D3 plus the faith points you spent, you're going to see your sisters getting shot, spending faith points to save better. Maybe they'll eat a crit, which will be like, let's say 5 damage, reduce that to 3, and then heal D3 plus maybe 1 or 2 faith points, and then you're back to full health. You're going to have moments where your sister has like 5 wounds remaining, gets shot, and comes out of the action at full health. So, I mean, they feel tankier than Marines against like non-piercing 2 in my eyes.
Yeah.
And they are just like immovable. I think that they have they hit really hard. So they're lacking piercing 2, which I think is one of the things you need to beat Marines, but they do have easy access to crits because of faith points.
Yeah.
So I think that they have ways to hurt Marines pretty reliably. And they do still have piercing on like the Condemner and the Plasma Pistol and the Superior. And they are one of the teams that uses crack grenades really well. Not all teams use crack grenades very well these days. Novitiates do use them pretty well. They don't care about hitting on 4s because they have faith points. They can make up for it a little bit. So, I mean, not to mention Blinding Aura. They changed Blinding Aura from a firefight or from a active faith, where basically you could pay like 3 faith points, and then if you're like concealed, they basically can't shoot you outside of 2 inches because you count as being in cover. They changed it. It's no longer an active faith. It's now a firefight play. So it doesn't cost faith points, it costs command points. It's now once per turn instead of as many times as you want to use it in a turn. So in that sense, it's worse. But now it doesn't care if you're concealed, really. It doesn't give you cover anymore. It just says they can't shoot you. And the real kicker is if they don't have anybody else to shoot, they don't get their action refunded. So you're going to have times where your opponent flips their gunner to engage, moves out into the open, declares a shot, and then you Blinding Aura, and then they're just stuck out in the open. They're out of APL. They're unengaged. They just did nothing. They like wasted a whole activation. And so either that will happen, and because they'll forget about it, or they'll remember it, and like they aren't shooting you way more often because it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna get this out to force their Blinding Aura to go away. Because if you're doing that, you're flipping to engage and you're wasting actions and you're wasting an activation. So it's less common for them to just make you waste it because they're like killing their own tempo. And on top of that, I mean, I do think that the team, if you just tamper or you temp down those the healing and the damage reduction just a little bit, I don't think you should hit the healing too much. I think you should hit the damage reduction to be once per turn per operative so that you're not getting it every single time you get hit.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But yeah, right now, I mean, they have the juice, in my opinion, to hit elites really hard. I think they give Inquisition a pretty hard time because Inquisition is kind of a big shooting team. So I think shooting teams are going to struggle in Novitiates, and I also think Novitiates have enough melee to mess with a lot of like. I think do a lot of damage to any team they out-activate.
Yeah.
Um, and the one thing that really scares me for Novitiates is like Fellgors, I would say. But Fellgors are getting chased out of the meta by Marines, so doesn't super matter.
Yeah. Yeah, so I went ahead and just threw these models at the top of S tier. Yeah, they're pretty crazy right now.
Yes, they are.
And that's probably an understatement. That's a team that seriously needs to get looked at for balance purposes.
Yeah, I think all the teams that we're going to have an S tier by the end of this need to get looked at.
Yeah, if I'm having my Nemesis Claw Skin Thief charge onto an objective to fight your one of your flamer ladies, and the Skin Thief dies, and you come back at full health after that combat,
You did have to roll
I
pretty
lost the
bad for that
game.
to happen, but yeah, that did happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Previous edition would not have happened.
No, definitely not.
Even with how bad the roll was.
Yeah, so I mean, let's look at Breachers, Ryan, because I think Breachers is like a very sad team right now.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah,
think they
I've
just
heard
got nerfed.
literally nothing about this team. They got nerfed?
Yeah, they pretty much got nerfed. So
Okay.
they lost stims. Stims are just gone.
Oh,
So
good.
the equipment that every operative on the team would take almost.
Yeah.
So they're basically, before they were an 8-wound team. Now they're not. And I think legally, here's the crazy thing. I mean, I don't know how much we should factor this in for a tier list,
Okay.
but you actually like can't build this team in one box because of the changes. Because they made the little robots half of an operative choice. I guess the idea, it was supposed to help them, but you can't build this team with one box anymore, which is just horrific.
Yeah, that really sucks right now, especially considering that box is, I'm pretty sure it's currently out of production. They have not repackaged it, and you did not see a new box come out when Agents of the Imperium came out for 40K.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they will re-release it eventually with the right amount of models, I would hope.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, if you were playing Breachers and you only had one box, sorry.
This will still be a 2-box team. There's no way
Yeah.
that they redesign an entire sprue for an already existing kit. That's just not going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if I can say they're D tier. They're like low C tier at best. I think
Okay.
they're like a very basic. They feel like a watered down version of the former team
Yeah.
that was already sort of like not blowing anybody's minds by the end of second edition.
Yeah. Like everybody knew the play pattern with this team, and you're able to adjust and play around that if you're a good player. If it's your first time playing him, you're gonna get taken off guard, but
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I would say C tier for them. They're just very samey and they got worse, and yeah, not a lot to say.
cool. Shane, let's talk about Corsair Voidsguard.
Ooh, yeah.
Woohoo! Elves are still good. Or elves are
Yeah.
good now, I should say.
I mean, Corsairs might be better than Hand of the Archon, to be honest.
Yeah, that is. It's either this or them, right? There's no other elf team that I'm missing.
There's one other that we'll talk about that I have thoughts on. I mean, I would say that Corsairs are A tier. I don't think they're quite S tier. Um, man, it's tough between them and Hand of the Archon. I genuinely don't know which one is better. I lean towards Corsairs.
I think I do too. I think that the Hand of the Archon team is probably more killy. But the Corsair Voidsguard, I think they're killy enough to be good into most teams, and they're way more tricksy.
Yeah,
So I gotta give it to the tricksy team here. And it
Me
stinks
too.
because I'm running Hand of the Archon right now, and I've decided on them pretty much as my main. But I really do want to run Corsair Voidsguard.
Yeah.
But I don't want to buy, build, and paint this team just for them to be unclassified in a year's time.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
So it's like, all right, well, I guess we'll go with the next best thing.
Yeah, no, I mean they got piercing too. They've got they have fine access to crits, to big crits. Not quite Hand of the Archon. It's not Critty City, but it is a lot of crits, a lot of good crits. They have out of activation movement. They have they can lay some pretty tough traps down with their wizard and like the damage reduction. They can get crazy threat ranges with just with the 7-inch move and the free dash, and like you can use plunderers to dash in the strategy phase, and you lose your dash for the turn. But let's say you're the duelist guy that with the pistols, you can dash and then charge when you activate him, and you basically it gives you like a 13-inch charge, um, and then you just fusion a guy in the face. So
That's
that's
funny.
really good.
That's a really good play.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good. You have the blink guy that can go through ITD walls for some reason. Like I what?
Hilarious. Dude, like every team that has just ignore the walls on ITD ability, it's just like
Yeah,
why is this a thing?
yeah, that
For
was never a thing last edition. Now
for
all of a sudden,
yeah, for like the Aquilons, I get it because their whole faction identity, and we'll talk about this, is them dropping in from off the board.
yeah.
So I guess that makes sense, but like these other teams it's just goofy to me. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, I think Corsairs are very, very good. They have a lot of tricks in the toolbox. They're good in melee. They have great shooting. They have rerolls now, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan. They're great. I narrowly give them the edge over Hand of the Archon, but both very good teams.
All right.
Next up, let's talk about let's talk about Chaos Cult.
Okay.
Because I think I can say some mean things about Chaos Cult because there's only like one or two people who play them, like in the whole world.
Right now, yeah.
Um, I think they are one of the few teams that actually did just get worse. Um, they're like most teams got better, like we said earlier. I think Chaos Cult is actually worse. They can only make one torment per turn now, and I think they can't make one on turn one. I could be wrong about that, but one torment now, which hurts really bad. Um, they like the thing is like they lost stuff, like the ability to get two torments in a turn. Um, there was a lot of take and not a lot of give. So I guess what I'm referring to specifically is like you look at for instance, the mutants, I guess, the chaos mutants, who lost their feel no pain. They do have a little bit of damage reduction, but it's like very mediocre, -1 damage on a 5 up against a normal um, damage reduction. So they lost their feel no pain, which was better than their current DR. But like they still have 7 wounds. They didn't get any wounds to like make up for that, and their melee didn't get any better. I mean, it's ceaseless, I guess, is better than it used to be, but um, still 4 attacks on 4s, 3/4, ceaseless rending, and now you're leaning more on the mutants because there's less torments to carry you, and the mutants just kind of suck. Um, I mean, now the torments too. I mean, they lost their feel no pain. They didn't get any wounds to account for it. They don't even have relentless. They still have ceaseless. Um, and you're getting less of them. And this was before your only way to like kill Marines, and now I don't even think they. I'm not even sure this thing can kill a Marine, to be honest. Um, Yeah. Oh, and also I misspoke just a second ago. It's not normal damage only on their damage reduction. It does affect crits as well, it looks like. But it's on a 5 up, 3 or more. So I don't know. It's the team is just like I think it's just really hard for them to get going now.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, they lose an operative too? 110. Yeah, I think they have 14 operatives now. They used to have 15. So they lost an operative. Um,
Yeah, max operatives you can take now is 14.
Yeah, and like the mutations have gotten a lot worse. They didn't like give them anything to kind of make up for the fact that their feel no pains are gone and their torments are less frequent. I think it's just really hard to get things going with Chaos Cult, and I think they're like an easy D tier in my eyes. Um, I would put them above Kroot, below Blades.
Of Kroot, below Blade.
Yeah, I think Blades can beat Chaos Cult in their current iteration.
All
God, is
right.
Crew going to be the bottom team? I did say earlier I think they're not the worst team, but
I don't know.
I'm
To
like,
be fair, I was surprised when you said that. So,
yeah, I might have to go back on that. Ryan, what do we got next?
let's keep it chaos. Let's talk about Chaos Blooded.
Ooh, Blooded.
Mm-hmm.
Traitor Space Marines, or as the PDF refers to them as Chaos Worshipping Renegade Guardsmen. um, yeah, Blooded are kind of sick, actually. They, I think, did get a little bit better. They were already good, and they received like a few little things. Um, but I think importantly, the game is just better for them now.
Yeah, because their whole thing
Blo-
was they had no problem punching. I should say above their weight.
Yeah.
To kill things. And hey, look at that! Killing is now a third of the points that you can score in this game.
Yep.
And they have the tools to deal with elites, I think. So,
Yeah, they've got like a Melta. They have, plasma pistol, plasma gun. Some of the melee guys aren't too bad. Um, I mean, blooded tokens, if I'm not mistaken, it's just kind of the same. You have accurate one, and Gaze of the Gods gives you accurate one with a crit, um, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of there's a lot more rerolls, I feel, than there was before. Like, I don't know, Glory Kill, I think, got a little bit better. It used to just be balanced on one guy. Now it's ceaseless on one guy or relentless
mm-hmm.
if you have a blooded token. Which you probably will. And I don't know. The like reckless aspirant is there too, so you can really stack up your accurate also, because accurate one, if you have it twice, stacks and becomes accurate two.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of their cool stuff like shooting into combat is still a thing. Um, the on command 3 APL for the guy under the gaze of the gods is pretty sweet. That's still a thing. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I like where they are right now. They don't like blow my mind. And I think like they do still struggle into like they're good into elites, like in general, but I still think they'll bounce off of Legionnaires and Warp Coven.
Yeah. I mean, like, what doesn't, though?
Yeah. I think they're like a high B tier team right now. They're like very, as always, very balanced. Um,
Better than Starstriders or worse?
um,
I think they're definitely better than Commandos.
I would say better than Commandos. Better than Starstriders. I'll say that.
Okay.
I think. I don't know for sure, but they're in the same ballpark to me.
Yeah.
Uh what's next here? Let's talk about Pathfinders, Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Pathfinders got a lot worse,
Good.
to be honest.
I
Yeah,
mean, I
good.
mean,
We hate those guys. Yeah, they're just like
yeah.
I think they lost a lot of stuff and they didn't get a lot back. Um Goodness, where in the world? I'm like trying to find the actual PDF here, and for some reason it's like hiding from me. Pathfinders. Where are the Pathfinders in here? Oh, there it is. Yeah, so like it's like these little weird things that became bad about them. For instance, the like savior protocols costs a CP now. Never did before. Um, Bonded used to be balanced. Now it's accurate one. That's worse. Um, I don't know. Worthy cause is way worse. Like that used to be like take initiative basically.
Yeah.
Now it's at the start of the firefight phase. You just do a free mission action. I mean that
Cool.
is like insanely worse.
Yeah.
Um, and they didn't like get stuff to make up for this, in my opinion. Um, they're sort of still just like a pure shooting team that hits on fours. They have less access to rerolls. Um, I mean, I think marker lights are the marker lights are worse. They no longer add 1 to the ballistic skill. That's what it was.
Yeah.
They used to add 1 to the ballistic skill. They don't do that anymore. They give balanced, which has always been a thing. And like on 4 marker lights, you get like Seek Light, which how much light cover is there on Volcus, you know? They're probably better on Into the Dark, to be honest, where you can abuse Seek Light a little bit more because
Yeah.
people have to rely on barricades.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that they are much worse. I would probably say, I mean, C or D. Like I'm not sure what about them.
Dude, it might even be D.
I think it is D.
Just because I mean you're hitting on 4s and you're getting ceaseless, but
I mean,
having
not
no
even
way
getting
of
ceaseless.
improving your.
You're getting balanced or accurate.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes both.
Some of their weapons do have ceaseless. I'm seeing here, but
Oh yeah.
I mean
Um,
it's funny because I'm looking at this team and I'm like, okay, this team does not have the best shooting in the game, and that's literally Tao's entire faction identity. So because of that, D tier.
yeah, and I mean you still get 2 weapons experts and 1 um what's that guy? The marksman. So I mean the marksman, first of all, the grenadier is he does still have that piercing 2 grenade, which is that's good.
Yep,
That's
and
really
that
cool.
and that does hit on 3s.
Does hit on threes. He can use a crack grenade that hits on threes. So that's a couple piercing 1, piercing 2 and a piercing 1 there. The let me find the marksman. He does hit on threes with piercing 1 and devastating 2 and lethal 5. He hits pretty hard. Um, the weapons experts, they hit on 4s, but you know, the ions with 5 attacks, it's piercing crits. They can overcharge to get just piercing 1 and lethal 5 with hot. And the rails, you know, piercing 1. So they can get up to 4 piercing sources, one of which is piercing 2. Um, but again, they have no melee. They are lacking a little bit in reliability, and like you said, I'm not even sure if I'm not sure who the best shooting team is, but I don't think it's Pathfinders.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with top of D tier.
All right.
And is it me now, or is
I
it
think you chose Pathfinders.
okay?
So let's talk about the Hernkin Jagers.
Yeah, the Jaegers kind of got better. I mean, they did get better. There's really no kind of about it. Um, it's weird though because they don't feel like amazing. Like I thought they were really good, and they did just get better, but like they don't seem amazing still, despite
Uh-huh.
that, which makes no sense. Maybe it's just like the game isn't as good for them as it was. Um, they aren't amazing at killing the new elites. I will give them that. So like it's mostly shotguns. The knives did get worse unless you take guys with knives. Because you only get 3 attacks now instead of 4.
Right.
The mines are better because it halts the activation. So maybe
Yeah.
that's like the key against them. And I think you really do have to like take knives, or I'm sorry, take mines and take razor wire and stuns and just try to like disrupt as much as you can against elites. And I think against non-elites, you're very tanky and you might be able to lean into that. They are 5-inch movement now, which is great. And the warriors got better. So they're probably still like perfectly fine, but I don't think they're particularly amazing at any of the tac apps they can take. Because if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Jaegers still don't have access to security. You know, let me check. Let me fact check myself here because I could be talking on my ass here. Um, I like the Leagues of Votan Pioneer Commandos is a pretty cool way to describe them in PDF. Yeah, so they don't have security, and I've always said since day one, this team is like tailor made to be good at security. I get why
Yeah.
they don't have it thematically, but man, they would be great with it. I think they kind of suck at seek and destroy and infiltration. So I think they're going to suck on TAC which is like a bad recipe
Mm-hmm.
to start. Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're still fine. They're probably like low B.
Lobby.
Yeah, I'd say
Probably
they're worse
better
against. Yeah.
than Exaction.
Um. Yes. Yeah. Better than Exaction. Um. I would say. Ooh, are they better than Commandos? I think no.
Okay.
But I will say I think Jaegers, if elites get nerfed, I think Jaegers are going to jump up a little bit because I think they're very good against um the against elves. I think they just crush elves.
Okay.
So keep an eye out for that team, I guess.
Cool.
Next up, let's talk about the other dwarves, Ryan.
Sure. Yeah.
Salvagers, Hearthkin Salvagers. I'm going to be honest, Salvagers are really, really good. Um, I was looking at their rules the other day, and undeniably, I think they got better. Um, so, I mean, one of the things that makes them kind of silly to play against, and this is like a so first of all, they have obvious access to crits a plenty with grudge tokens, and they have a decent amount of piercing. I mean, you can get piercing on the Thane, and then you can take a few. You can take a gunner with piercing 1. You take 2 gunners with piercing 1 and a gunner with piercing 2. Um, and then all of your regular guys can get piercing crits 1, which so obviously against something like legionnaires, they're just going to reduce your piercing. So I guess in that situation, you look at the accurate guns instead of piercing. Um, but they've got this equipment piece that I think just probably should just be nerfed like into the ground.
Yeah.
It's called Writ of Claim. I'm just going to read this and
Sure.
then we'll explain why this is stupid. So once per battle, they can, after rolling off to decide initiative, you can use this equipment. If you do, you add 1 to your result for each objective marker your operatives can test, and 1 for each objective marker you control. And it's cumulative with the first bullet. So you may be adding, I mean, very easily on turn 2, you could be adding 3 to your initiative roll. And I don't think it caps at 6. So a lot of the time, and if you have 4, I mean, it's like if you're adding 4 to it, you're basically just getting it. I mean, the only
Yeah.
way is say you didn't go first on turn 1, you would have to roll a 1, and your opponent would have to roll a 6. Um, so for all intents and purposes, I mean, and then think about like if you just regular win initiative on turn 2, you don't even have to use it.
Yeah.
So I think that the control, this is not something we've really seen outside of like Pathfinders who had to spend multiple CP on it and are also like a very like, weird team in and of themselves with like clear weaknesses in melee and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've seen this extent in a while in terms of being able to all but guarantee initiative on the following turn.
Yeah.
So against teams that they out activate, I mean, you can seriously just like you could be really, really punishing.
Yeah.
It probably shouldn't be that good, in my opinion. I don't think that they're S tier though. I think that like that one thing about them is pretty broken, but the rest of the team is pretty well designed. I think. I think just like gimmicky, skewy stuff like that is just not good for the game. But everything else, I mean, they have a ton of crits. They have a good amount of piercing, a lot of piercing, really. Um, and yeah, I just think that I think they're really good, and I would put them high A tier.
High A tier. Above Angels
Yes, I would put them above Angels.
into the Archon.
Um, I would, man, I think I would put, yeah, I'd put them above any elf team.
Okay, so that includes Corsair Void Scarred, putting them at top A.
Yep. I think if you nerf that one thing, the um the initiative thing, I think they're more of like a B tier team, which is like the goal.
Mm.
Um, and also the jump pack. I mean, the jump pack. I don't know if you know this. His movement. He's an 8-inch movement. Like what in the world? I know he's got a jump pack, but like 8-inch movement. That's the fastest model in the game.
Yeah. Which is
Like,
hilarious
why?
because this is a
Like, why is he
historically
that
slow
fast?
team.
Yeah.
Because he's got a jump pack, of course. Is there any
Yeah.
restriction on his movement, or does he have like a boost ability with that jump pack? Out of curiosity, I'm yet to play
So
against
he
this
doesn't
team.
have boost anymore, but for context, boost was it used to be a 2 AP action, and
Yeah,
you would get to move 12 inches in a straight line.
right. Yeah,
Now he doesn't have that, but his move dash is 11 inches, and that costs 2 APL. And he still has the fly. He has the fly ability like Vespids do, which is very
yeah,
rare.
yeah,
And so now you can go 11 inches instead of 12 inches. It costs the same amount of APL, but it's a lot more flexible. Um, and yeah, he's got a 10-inch charge if he doesn't fly. Um, Pretty
cool.
crazy. I mean, you can just
Yeah,
get in somebody's face. You can have crack grenades, and with proximate firepower, you're hitting on threes.
nice.
And if you know you're going to get initiative, like you will, you can set up your Cognitar token there. You can give the guy you want to hit a grudge token, and then have the jump pack, launch across the board with a crack grenade,
Yeah,
hitting on
just dunk
threes,
on him.
with accurate, with a reroll, with a grudge token. You just kill something.
Yeah,
Um, and he's good at melee, so you might be able to set up a double kill because if ancestors are watching, you get a free fight or shoot.
mm,
Yeah, I think it's clearly like that ability, that level of reliability is just I think too good, especially because you can also just regular win initiative and it's
yeah,
really good still.
cool.
um, what's next?
So I'm gonna go ahead and choose the Void Dancer troop, the last of the elves.
Yeah, I mean, so before we do this, I'm gonna say we should put Brood Brothers at top of B because
Okay,
I think A is getting a little
it is
stacked,
getting
and
crowded. Yeah.
I don't feel like they belong in A looking at everything else. They're just like a
Hmm.
really above average team now.
Yeah.
And maybe that's, maybe I'll be wrong and Brood Brothers are still like broken, but I don't think so. But Void Dancers, I've actually been messing around with Void Dancers a little bit on the side. And at first I was like, oh, this is like a very simplistic version of the old team. They're, I don't want to say more compendium-y, but they're easier to wrap your head around. I think Sadath was just like a disaster of a rule to read to people.
Yeah.
I really hated Sadath, but they've made it a lot more simple. You have your pivotal roll. There's only two performances. It's a reroll in shooting or a reroll in melee.
Okay.
And whenever your pivotal roll gets a kill, you can give somebody else the accolade. Every strategy phase, you give somebody an accolade. By the end of the game, probably like half your team or more has gotten the accolade. Um, they are so obviously 8 activations, I think, is a weakness, but they are very fast. They count all climbs as 1 inch. So that's really good. It's not quite flying, but um, think of it this way. Before, they had 6 inch movement and fly way back when. Now they have 7 inch movement and they cost all climbs as 1. So that's kind of the same,
Yeah.
except now if you're not climbing, you're faster, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of just better.
Objectively better. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't drop for free. I mean, there's a lot of debate about. So this is one of the weirdest rules debates. And at first I heard it and I was like, oh, that's stupid. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, wait a minute. So here's the thing, Ryan. Void Dancer troops, they climb for 1 inch.
Right.
They don't say anything about dropping.
Yep.
So dropping would theoretically, if you're jumping off of like the high building, it would
Yeah.
cost like a few inches or something. Um, in the rule book, climb doesn't say going up; it says vertically.
Okay.
So say you're void dancers, or say you're there's a ladder against a wall. Can you climb down? Because it doesn't say climb up; it just says climb is vertical.
Yeah.
And would it not make sense to go down a ladder and have it be more efficient than scaling down a wall? Or if you're a void dancer, would it not make sense for them to be able to drop faster than they climb? You know,
Yes.
it's a thing where it's like I don't know if that was intended, but it makes sense to me. And I've seen some people call it gamey, and I really don't think it is.
I mean,
It's just like
like,
rules is written, it's clear, and I
yeah.
think whether or not that was intended, it makes sense in my brain to go down a ladder instead of like trying to wall jump. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So by that interpretation, they drop pretty fast too.
Mm-hmm.
Most drops are 1 inch anyway, but for the few that aren't. Anyway, talking about the actual team, um, the uh, the weapons are a little bit different. The blades no longer give balanced; now they give severe. So you guarantee a crit when you roll dice with them in melee, which is great because a lot of their rules proc off of rolling crits. Like, for example, if you go to their firefight ploys, which by the way, your players, your basic players, once per turn, one of your players can use one of your firefight ploys for free.
Okay, that's actually kind of nuts. I did
It's
not know that.
awesome. Yeah, but you can't do the same one for free multiple turns.
I
But
I
they're
would assume, yeah.
yeah, their firefight plays are awesome. I mean, so you've got Curtain Falls, which is better than it used to be. It used to be you get a 1 AP fallback action after you strike with a crit.
Right.
Now it's after you strike the crit, you can fall back for free up to 3
Ooh.
inches,
Okay.
or you can dash, which means you can kill a guy and then get a dash, whereas
Yep.
before you weren't able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's free. So now you can charge a guy, say you charge a Marine,
I love
auto
this.
crit him,
Yep.
fall back,
Yep.
and then shoot him.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, that's one way to hit a Marine pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
They've still got Murderous Entrance, where you can strike with a basically you double tap for a CP. You strike and then immediately strike again. Um, so with like something like if you had if you have 2 crits, for instance, you can almost guarantee a kill onto a Marine. And with 1 crit, you can not guarantee a kill, but you can guarantee you're going to get them down to 1 wound, which
Mm-hmm.
is basically killing them.
Yeah.
Um, they have Domino Field is no longer a strategic ploy. It's a very cool firefight ploy where basically when you're rolling defense dice, let's say your opponent had like, they shot you and they had like 3 fours. They had 5 dice. Let's say they had 3 fours and a 5 as their successes. And you roll on your defense a 2, a 4, and a 5. You can pay a CP for Domino Field to make your 4 save all of the 4s that your opponent rolled,
Mm.
which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And that works crazy thing. Say your opponent has Rending and they get a crit and they can retain one of their normals as a crit and they retain the 4. It's still a 4.
Yeah.
So your 4 with Domino Field is getting rid of their crit 4 that they just retained. So it's like little things like that. They're actually slightly more durable now in shooting.
Interesting.
I think a lot of their strategy plays are not amazing. Like Prismatic Blare is the same, and I think you'll take that one most turns now against teams that shoot you.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't see their ploys and think like, oh, I'm going to be dumping CP into these ploys every turn. Like Segrax is okay. But like you're going to save your CP decently. Like you're going to have a boatload of CP, I think, with this team because you're getting the free firefight ploy every turn. You have the Death Mask to get a CP midway through the game, probably once 3 of your Accolade guys die. And the last thing I want to talk about is the Shadow Seer. The Shadow Seer is awesome. So his Mirror of Minds, Ryan, you remember how Mirror of Minds worked before, right? You'd
Yep.
roll 66, and for each match, your opponent takes 1 damage.
Yep.
Now, you roll 5d6 with your opponent, and for each match, they take d3 damage to a max of 8.
Ooh.
So, say you match on 3, they're taking 3d3 damage. He can do that from Conceal.
Okay.
All they need is a valid target. Now, keep in mind, a guy that's obscured is a valid
Still
target
a valid
now.
target. Yep.
So this is like ignoring obscurity.
Yeah.
It's like a silent ignoring
This is a
obscurity.
very
like,
good shooting attack.
very, very good shooting attack. And like you can pop him up on that top vantage very easily on Volcus,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just gonna launch like mortal wounds out
Oh
for
my
free all
god,
game.
yeah.
So that's, I mean, you do that to an elite, they're probably in 2-shot range now.
Yep.
So like they have these little ways to chip the elite teams down. Not to mention they got a fusion pistol and a neuro disruptor. I think they're really good. I think that
Okay.
they are like probably a little bit worse than Corsairs and Hand of the Archon, but I think they're A tier.
Cool.
I would say
Are they
better than
better
Angels.
than Angels, better than Nemclaw?
Yeah, Fellgor probably
Huh.
beats them in a 1-on-1, but like, hey,
Into
that's
the field. Into the
yeah,
field,
yeah.
yeah. All right, so we're coming up at right now we are at an hour and 45 minutes into this recording, so I kind of want to blitz through the rest of these. So let's go
Sure.
ahead and talk about Legionnaires, Shane.
S tier.
S tier. Yep.
Yeah, S tier. They're
Yep.
I think you could put them at the top of S tier right now. But I mean, they just stat check every team in the game. Um, I do think there are some teams that can actually play well into them, and I think there's like a lot of I think they're being overblown how good they are, but they're undeniably too good.
Mm-hmm.
But they are a team that has like no tricks. They're just a pure stat check machine, and you need to find ways around it, and it's
Yeah.
really hard for a lot of teams. For some teams, it's just impossible. But if you want to hear me talk more about Legionnaires, I did a podcast with Kill Team Casuals. You can
Yep.
go check that out
Mm-hmm.
and get my full thoughts on them. But yeah, they're just a wall of stats. I don't think they're the best team in the game. I think I would put them higher than Novitiates and Inc. But we'll talk about what I think the best team is in a second.
Ooh. Okay. Oh, I
Uh,
swear to God, Shane. I swear to God, if okay.
you're right, man. It's
Uh.
freaking Death Core of Krieg. No, I'm just kidding. Death Core of Krieg. Let's move on to them. Ryan, I think D or C tier maybe.
Sounds great.
Um, They are just a vet guard, but a lot of their stuff got way worse. And they were awesome at primary, and they're not awesome at that anymore, like
Yeah.
Kronop. They were like a very score scumming team that was, they lost their ability to score very easily. They aren't very good at killing elites. Um, I just think they're a lot worse. So I think they're D tier.
All right. Speaking of D tier, um, Gellerpox infected. A lot of
I,
stun in this game.
oh, I don't. Man, they're way worse. So I think they were like borderline the best team, if not the best team at the end of last edition. I don't think they're D tier. I think they're low C tier. Um, I think that and I haven't played against the team much. You are right. The stun is everywhere, and it's bad for them. Um, but I think the same applies to like Fellgors too. Um, they did get much worse. Unlike Chaos Cult, losing the Field of Pain, they got at least a few wounds on the Hulks. I think maybe you could have given one wound to the mutants to make up for it a little bit. Until they fix it, technically the team has 15 activations, which is kind of heinous.
Yeah.
Um, I assume they're going to fix that and give the Vermin GA2. And I don't know. I think if it doesn't take much, I think for this team to be competitive again. Like for instance, like being able to get rid of like pollute stockpiles is really good. Like think about the Hearthkin thing I was talking about earlier. Like if you can get rid of that, that's really good. It's a bit dicey, but most teams in the game just can't do anything about that. But Gellerpox theoretically can just get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they'll need other teams to get nerfed, and I think they could use a tiny bump, and they'll be like B tier. Right now they're pretty weak though. I agree. So I'd say C.
All right. Your pick.
My pick. Let's talk about Wormblade.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. I've seen some people say they like Wormblade just because they have a high access to Ceaseless, which I mean they already did before, guys. And Ceaseless was just Cult Ambush. Nothing's changed there.
Yep.
Um, I think that they are probably high C or low B. Like the heavy weapons are no longer. They used to be like heavy reposition, basically. Now they're
Mm.
back to being heavy dash, which does suck. I think some of the occult agents got a little bit worse because they're not hitting on twos anymore. Um, and I think in general I don't think they kill elites very well. And they don't play the mission particularly better than a lot of the hordes. They're like okay. Um, yeah, I don't know. They don't blow my mind. I think they're like a pretty average shooty horde, and I would put them like they were a score scumming team, kind of like Vetguard. Um, and that's not as much of a thing these days without turn one scoring. So I would put them high C tier.
Okay.
And I think their lethality got knocked down a little bit.
I'm gonna go ahead and choose Tempestus Aquilons.
Yeah.
Another Hivestorm box team that I've played. I think best, at best, probably like mid B tier. But like
I think
what?
they're C tier.
Yeah,
I'm not very impressed with them. They're very much like a like once you know their gimmick,
yeah. It's a very
they don't do
obvious
much.
play pattern that they have. So it's like just play around that and then dunk on them late game because they don't really
Yeah,
have a
because
lot
here's what
going on late
happens
game.
with Echelons: either your opponent doesn't know what they do and you like stomp them, or they know what you do and the game is very passive for the first half,
Yep.
and then turn 3 rolls around and you're just a team without
Any
faction abilities.
yes, yeah,
You're just like a bunch of models with
yeah,
guns. So I would put them C tier. I think they're worse than Kasrkin. They're probably better than
yes, yeah.
Vespids, I guess. Yeah.
I think they're better than Vespids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, so we did Void Dancers. What do we have left? What do we have left?
Hyrotech Circle, Hunterclade, Phobos, Scout Squad, and Warp Coven.
Let's do Scout Squad.
Scout
I
Squad.
think Scout Squad is C tier. Probably they're better than I think Echelons and Vespids, and probably better than Kasrkin, and I would probably stop there. They did get a lot worse. They toned back the knives.
Yep.
They lost an operative, so they're back to being like a tricksy mid-range team rather than like a stat check mid-range team, which is I think good for the game. Um, Shotguns are still awesome. And in general, I just think that the changes were a good direction. And I think there's going to be growing pains, and I think they'll eventually be a team that probably gets like some small buffs and hopefully becomes what they were supposed to be, which was like not like a wall of stats that walks up and shotguns you and says there's too much of us for you to kill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think they're going to be more of like a genuine scout team. Like they're going to feel more like a scout team right now. And I think they're going to be underpowered for like a little bit, but not significantly so. Um, yeah, I'm kind of fine with the scout changes.
Cool.
They're a little underwhelming right now, but that's okay with me.
All right. I'm gonna choose Hunterclade,
Okay.
another White Dwarf team from last edition.
Yeah. They're pretty not great, I think. I mean, I want to say D tier.
Okay.
So now like they lost a model, and their deprecations are always active. Like you don't have to like you can't get around the deprecations anymore, which is really unfortunate. I think they're better than Pathfinder. I think they're better than all those teams we have in D right now, but um, they definitely could use a bit of a glow up. I think they are one of the teams that just got worse.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the common thread in D tier is these teams actually just got worse, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you want to
for the most
continue
part.
with that trend?
Actually, I've my thoughts have changed on higher tech since the last time we talked,
Really?
Ryan.
Okay.
I still hate them. Like
Okay.
I think they took everything I loved about that team and just ripped it out. But I have to admit that they are pretty good. They're just different. Like
Okay.
the days of like the superhero Cryptech
For
doing like
APL, crazy
yeah,
Alpha Strike stuff. Yeah.
that's kind of gone. But what we have instead is like a more accurate Necron team where they are like this slow advancing horde that just doesn't die, and they slowly chip you down. And there's some cool stuff you can do with death marks, which I learned from shout out to Matt from NYO who I played, who was doing awesome things with death marks. Like he ran all death marks instead of immortals,
Okay.
and like on an Into the Dark, having them go on guard and then being able to like teleport them forward on guard against your door. So if you open the door, they're just gonna blast you. Is just sick.
That is sick.
Uh,
Yeah.
I really, really like what you can do with death marks now. They made the Technomancer a lot better. I think the Psychomancer has a role. The Chronomancer is all three Cryptechs are actually like usable now.
Okay, that's good.
The internal balancing is a lot better. And I think there are some teams that just really cannot deal with higher tech's staying power. So I think they're A tier. And I would probably put them. Oh man, probably above Void Dancers and probably above Hand of the Archon. I don't know about Corsairs. I think I'd put them behind Corsairs, but
Okay.
man, they're really good.
All right. I'll go ahead and choose Phobos Strike Team.
Ryan, this is going to blow your mind. I've played against Phobos 3 times now. They're one of the teams I've played against the most in tournament now.
Uh-huh.
I've played them against them 3 times in tournament play. And every time I play against them, they seem stronger to me. And
Okay.
I'll be honest, this is going to sound crazy. I think they're S tier.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think they just have so many answers. I think them being 12 wounds doesn't matter. I think the 7-inch move is huge. I think that Omni Scramble is a game breaking ability. Not game break, like it's not broken, but I think it is like like a back breaking ability for your opponent. Um, like the Hearthkin thing that I was talking about, where they can
Mhm.
just guarantee initiative and just do that thing. Like Omni Scramble can get around that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, the only other team that has that exactly is Inquisitorial Agents. Um, I think that their offensive output went way up with purity seals, easier access to balanced and shooting. The marksman still hits like a truck. Um, they have special
Astartes as
issue
well. Yeah.
Astartes being like shoot twice being free, special issue ammunition equipment, giving them piercing when they need it. They just have so many shooting rules. They have so many tricks. I think if you have the right game plan tac op wise, you can like max tac ops very easily with this team on some boards. Um, I think that they have the firepower to take down other elites, and I'm just very very impressed by them. I think they're the bottom of S tier, but I think they are an S tier.
Okay.
And then Warp Coven, Ryan.
Yep.
I think Warp Coven's the best team in the game.
I freaking knew it. I
I
freaking
think they
knew it.
are. So shout out to George Armour, our Canadian friend, who just took down New York Open with Warp Coven. Um,
Love George.
and it's like the more that I look at the team, the more I'm like, man, they just sort of answer every problem. Like almost, I'd say. I can't say for certain that they would do well in Inquisitorial Agents, and I think Novitiates pair decently into them, but I think that they're an elite team when they need to be, and a very good elite team at that. But they can also be like a mid-range team. They can be a melee horde. And unlike like this was all sort of true before, but it was always like, oh, you can be a bad horde, or you can be a bad elite team, or
Yeah.
you can be something in the middle of that that's like maybe okay.
Somehow, yeah.
But now it's all pretty good. And their strategic ploys are sickening. Just very, very good. They're they're one of the 2 teams that reduces piercing innately across the board alongside legionaries.
Love that.
Um, Rubric Marines, dude, they have a 2-up save. They
Ooh.
reduce piercing, and they have all is dust, which is just a scratch basically. Um, so like if you don't have the melee to chew through those guys, they're still 14 wounds, and like their melee isn't good, but they can get accurate too pretty easily in melee. So like they can parry out and live. Um, Crazy counter. They have like they're one of the teams that can. I think they're like one of the only teams with like a more than 1-inch range heal 2d3, but they can do it on counteract because they're Astartes. So you might go up and do a bunch of damage to a guy, and then somebody else just counteracts, heals him back to like full health.
Hmm.
The sorcerers are really awesome in melee. The sorcerer abilities are really good. Um, Zangors aren't like mind blowing, but in a pinch, they're very good at playing the mission. They can do mission actions for free in your opponent's territory. They can GA2 together still. The champ is kind of a beast. Um, and you know the rubrics. If you go full rubric and full elite, you have a ton of piercing, which against a team that isn't Warp Coven or Legionaries is very good. They're double shooting, um, double fighting if need to. They're just really good. I think that they just have like so many tools, and for what it's worth, I think that these teams in S tier are all very very good, and it's very close. I don't think any of them are like clearly separated from the others, but I think if I had to pick one to be the best, I think it's Warp Coven
All right.
because I think
Well,
they stat check like Legionaries do while
mhm.
having tricks on top of that Legionaries don't.
Gotcha. All right, cool. So 5 teams in S tier.
But actually, like if you look at It's not a bad curve, right? I mean,
No, it's not. Like the only other outlier would be, I mean, A tier having 3 more teams than S tier. But this is a pretty good spread. I would like to see, obviously, like a lot less teams in D and C and more in
I'd like to
B.
see more teams in B and
Yeah.
less teams in A and C and S and D.
Yes.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. That's what I should be saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I feel like like this is a tier list, but there's lots of teams um in the game right now where if you're a good player and you get enough reps with a particular team, you can bump these. You can easily bump some of these teams up uh, uh, a tier or two or four.
Yeah.
I mean, there are exceptions to the rule. Um, Farstalker kinband. Open challenge, prove us wrong. Go out and try and
Yeah.
win a tournament. I don't care the size of the tournament. I don't care if it's 6 players or 69 players. Um, Try and win one with Farstalker kinband, and I will give you a shout out.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, it's possible. I mean, hey, maybe Firestalkers are better than Chaos Cult. Maybe we should. I think Chaos Cult's actually worse.
all right, the challenge still stands.
Okay. Yeah, actually, the challenge is just now win with Chaos Cult. That's the real challenge. But also Kroot would be cool too.
Yeah, in either case, if you win with any of the teams in D tier, I'll give you a shout out probably.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, dude, Warp Coven. You saying that Warp Coven is the best team in the game is kind of crazy. Especially because after I think it was after Atlantic City Open, one of the games that I won was against Warp Coven while I was playing Nemesis Claw, and I was looking at that team and I'm like, for like a week, I was looking at the rules and I'm like, I don't know, maybe there is. What is? I know this team's not good, but what's the best way of running this team? And I actually had all of the Warp Coven like kits in my cart on Games Workshop, and I was thinking about it, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. What am I doing? And now they're the best in the game. So
Yeah, they're pretty great.
yeah, if you play Thousand Suns, if you've got this team, go out and give them a try if you haven't already. They seem pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you
All
think?
right,
Yeah,
everybody. Thank you, everybody, for watching and joining us through this freaking marathon of our first third edition tier list. We'll
yeah.
see how well all of this holds up. Let us know all your opinions. Tell us how stupid we are, and if you have any hot takes, throw them in the comments section. Guys, we're getting close to 10,000 subscribers. That's kind of
We are
it's
very
kind of a big
close.
deal.
It is a big deal.
Um, so if you enjoyed this, if you want more third edition Kill Team content, subscribe, and there will be more to come. We're coming up on the holidays, Ryan, which means one thing. It's the 12 days of Kill Team,
Ooh.
and over a month from now, which means I need to start getting those together.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kill Team content on the way, guys. It's going to be great. It's going to be the holidays will be very fun.
Yep.
So stay tuned.
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and we hope to see you again in the next one.